Hi, I'm Maribel Aber for M&A.TV, and I'm sitting down with Marshall Sonenshine. He's the chairman of Sonenshine Partners. Thank you so much for joining us.
Delighted to be here, Maribel.
And congratulations on your award.
Thank you very much.
Talk a little bit about what's been going on with Sonenshine.
Well, what was fun about the award was it's called International Boutique of the Year, and we seem to be very international these days. That does seem to be apt for what's going on. I just got back from 12 days in China, where we're representing a number of important parties in the global film business and the major studio business, dealing with the whole subject of global investment in film. And we were meeting with leaders of government, finance, and media, which was great fun. We just finished work not too long ago on the sale of one of the largest remaining independent chains of hearing aid stores in the United States in a bankruptcy case called Hear USA, which we sold to Siemens. And we've sold companies to Nokia Siemens and to Dassault Systèmes and to Alcatel. And we've represented companies everywhere from China, where we were representing Alcoa, to Europe, to where we just put $250 million into Green Mountain Coffee for Luigi Lavazza, which is the largest coffee roaster on the continent. We seem to be all over the globe. For a relatively small group of 25 or so bankers, we seem to be all over the globe. So the international side seems very apt for what is happening.
What's going on in the international side in terms of financial news? What's significant?
Well, it's something that I've been talking about a fair amount in my teaching work at Columbia University, where I'm a professor of finance, and in my commentary work, principally at CNBC and sometimes also on Bloomberg. You know, this is a moment of really great uncertainty in global financial and corporate markets. Global demand for goods and services is very, very weak in the developed world, both in the United States, where we famously have gotten stuck at 9.1% inflation and really very anemic growth statistics, and the same in Europe. Even Germany, the lumbering strongman of the continent, has anemic growth as an economy, and 5% or so unemployment rate, which is not where they should be either. And frankly, when you spend time in China right now, you feel the anxiety. Even on the manufacturing side, manufacturers in China are painfully aware that global demand is weakening. They have a strong supply of manufacturing facilities and a weakening customer base. That's not a comfortable place to be, and even China, the greatest growth market in history, is not immune to the laws of economics. Layer on top of that we have our own form of political risk in this country, a phrase we tend to use when talking about emerging markets, but we could use for ourselves also, because it's called gridlock, the inability to come up with appropriate solutions. And we saw that play out this summer with our national debt fiscal crisis, which really was left unresolved when you really parse it. And now Europe, of course, which has tremendous pressures in the sovereign credit arena and in the banking sector. We're at a time of real uncertainty, and that's reflected in the volatility, in the downward drift in economic statistics, and so this is not an easy time to navigate international markets.
So you don't think this financial crisis is really over?
Well, I don't think it's over. I think that the financial crisis continues to ripple through the last few years in different ways, and we're in the third or fourth concentric circle of that crisis. I think when you have the number of financial institutions that were essentially falling over, toppling over like dominoes along Park Avenue, where my office sits, you know, I don't think it's over quickly. I do think that the solutions that we came up with in this country for the immediate problem largely worked, not entirely, but from even to the extent that they have worked for the moment, they have not solved longer and broader systemic risks that we continue to have in this country. I think the same is true in Europe. And so I think we continue to live in a mode of fragility with respect to how financial institutions are faring. But more importantly than that, on the corporate sector side and the fundamental economic productivity of the production of goods and services in the developed world, that continues to lag where it needs to be to serve those populations in those countries. And that's a real problem that we're not past at all. I don't think you can pin all of that onto the original financial crisis, but the financial crisis certainly exacerbated those problems.
Now, in terms of best practices, you're talking about your success in China and the deals that you're doing there. What do you think gives Sonenshine a competitive advantage?
Well, I think that in general we have two things that are competitive strengths. One is that we're very focused on what we do. We do corporate advice at the top level, board of directors, CEO, CFO, Fortune 500 and upper middle market in the areas of mergers, restructurings, and corporate finance. That's what we do. We're very clear about what it is that we do, and I think we do it very well. I think we have a reputation after more than a decade of doing it very well. The second thing is, you go back to Peter Drucker, the right person for the right job. We have the right people in the right jobs. We have a very international team that includes people from Europe, Asia, Latin America, and the like. We have probably 7 or 8 languages represented in the group at any point in time, which is a little bit unusual, as I keep saying, for a firm of 25. It is a very global organization, and I think everybody is highly, highly capable, and if I may say so, credentialed. We are a little bit elitist about that stuff in terms of where they came from professionally, academically, or whatever. And so I think we're very focused about what we do, and we have the right people doing it, and I think our clients see it. We feel good about that.
So that being said, what do you think the biggest mistake companies are making?
Well, that's a very broad question. I think there are reasons why companies get in trouble, and those reasons often have to do with leadership, but not always, but often. I think sometimes companies make mistakes in getting ahead of themselves in times of expansion, and then when you get the level of distress that we have seen and dislocation in American, European, and other financial and corporate sectors, they find that they're ahead of themselves. And I think also in the financial world, lots of firms have gotten in trouble for the simple reason that they did not stick to core principles. What went on in the subprime culture, and I think it was a culture as well as a marketplace, that was not functional, was not healthy. What went on at the top of financial institutions that had levered themselves 25, 30, sometimes 35 to 1, institutions that should have been levered at much lower rates. The time to have equity is when you don't need it. It's not right to stretch your equity all the way to the max and then some, and then suddenly find yourself without equity, and then you need it and you have to scramble to raise money when markets are weak. That's exactly what the banking sector did. You could wonder why people take advice from banks now after they have been so poor at administering or offering themselves advice on how to run their companies. But what went on in that financial sector among the big financial institutions writ large was rather an embarrassment to the industry, and I think we have to cite some of that also when we talk about how do companies get into trouble.
You've talked a lot about China. What are your thoughts on the other BRIC countries? Do you see opportunities there?
I think Brazil is probably, to me, the most interesting of the BRIC countries. It is an extremely vibrant economy. Now, their debt is not cheap, and interest rates are not cheap, and the foreign exchange issue in Brazil continues to be an issue. But the corporate sector is very strong. The level of entrepreneurship is very strong. There is a continued investment in education and infrastructure. There is a certain vibrancy to that population and to that business community that I think is unmistakable. I continue to be impressed by it. India, a little bit more of a complex story. I think it has defined itself as a leader in software solutions, services, and other categories that are very, very neo-mercantilist markets where they can provide those services on a fulfillment basis for the global economies. I think they have also shown themselves to have a very good banking sector. India largely escaped unscathed the financial crisis, and I would put up there also Canada and Israel, by the way. I think those are environments in which sovereign regulation of financial institutions proved to be better than the norm. So I think that's to the good. India has also had some problems in corruption and accountancy. They certainly have deep systemic problems, as does China, in terms of a failure to diversify, rather to disperse wealth across the population. So they have very, very unequal distribution of wealth, and I think that continues to plague that country. And China, I think, has some of what I just mentioned. Obviously, it's not services and solutions so much as manufacturing, although China is a much more diverse economy today and is quickly and rapidly diversifying. But China is not immune to the laws of supply and demand or the laws of gravity, and you are seeing some real wear and tear on their economic system. And China is also ranked number 125 in wealth per capita. It is not exactly a wealthy country in terms of a per capita statistic. So I think those are issues. Russia continues to be a little bit of the enigma. Russia is a harder country to understand. It was only 20 years ago that it was bankrupt. Much of its wealth is oil-based. Its economy is not as vibrant and diversified as Brazil, but it continues to both amaze and sometimes mystify global observers. I think Putin yesterday said he'd like to help out on Spain. We'll see if he actually does. But Russia continues to be a powerful engine, but a less transparent, more opaque one, and a less certain one than I think the other BRIC countries right now.
Now, switching gears a little bit, congratulations again
Thank you.
on your award. How important is it to be recognized by the M&A advisor sort of community at large?
It's a wonderful thing. This actually isn't the first time that we've had this honor, and each time this comes round, I think to myself that one of the nicest things in any profession, I don't care whether you're a doctor or a lawyer or whatever you are, in any profession, to be recognized by your peers who have a window on the profession and who give a certain seal of approval is a blessing. It is an enormous source of gratitude for our firm, for our clients, for the people who work in our organization. And I think the M&A Advisors has defined itself really as the premier industry association for this particular part of the financial world, the merger and acquisition and restructuring arena. So in that sense, I kind of feel like we're getting the best kind of good housekeeping seal of approval that one can want. So it's just a wonderful honor.
Well deserved. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Really nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
You're watching M&A.TV. Join the leaders.